Well, welcome everyone. I'm Lynn Woodland, and this is the year-long Miracles course class. It meets every week, and each one of these sessions is a complete experience. So if you just drop in once in a while, it doesn't feel like you've just come in the middle of a movie. And at the same time, each class here builds upon the last. We're really, if you stick with it a while, you'll see there is a process that makes sense, that takes us through a whole, a whole panoply of human growth experiences. And the spiritual work actually fits into the context of the seasons, because that is such a great template for the whole of human experience. For any of you who are not familiar with me, I'm the author of a couple of books about miracles. The first one's called Holding a Butterfly. And when you start that book, from the first page, you'll find yourself in a miracle experiment. So it's not a bunch of exercises on how to have miracles. It's read the book and start to see things happening, because the book will actually take you into an experiential kind of process. It's a little bit different from your typical, self-help, law of attraction kind of book. And my second book is called The Breakthrough Point, and that picks up where the first book leaves off, also a miracle experiment. But it's also a really deep dive into the times we're in and why they are so crazy. Especially, I actually published this book in, I think, 2016? Talking about how crazy the times were and just predicting a lot of things about our times. I couldn't have been more right on, and it really fits what's happening these days. So if you start to feel a little bit tumbled around sometimes every time you turn on the news, or just look at how life seems to be speeding up, check out that book. It's a little bit more of a positive spin, and also, well, the subheading is A Spiritual Activist Guide to thriving in a modern world. It really gives a lot of direction on how to not just divorce yourself from what's happening, but really to be an activist in changing our world and thriving, even if you see a lot of other people around you seeming to be in a lot of chaos and craziness. Anyway, I want to just get into tonight. It's the first week of the month of April. And as I've mentioned, we're now in the spring season. We work with the context of the season. And this season of coursework introduces many of the important elements of empowerment. This season is all about calling our dreams, those things we've dreamed up and envisioned, into physical manifestation. And the difference between spiritual growth and true mastery lies in the cultivation of personal mastery, as in mastery of our personality, along with opening our spiritual skills and opening to spiritual dimensions. Because while we may succeed in opening our spiritual faculties through any number of practices, when we give equal attention to refining our personalities at the same time, we see a powerful transformation in our overall quality of life, not just in our spiritual experience. Like we can, grow our psychic skills and become more psychically aware, but still have our life be all crap, if we're not evolving our personality at the same time. What's more, when we evolve our personality along with our spiritual experience, we grow tremendously in our ability to serve the world around us, as well as to just be happy. As perhaps a seasonally an apt metaphor for this is to imagine the personality as being like the soil in which our spiritual aspirations and our intentions grow. And, with a lot of energy and focus, we can grow a little house plant, it'll bring us moments of satisfaction now and again. Or we can grow a great big outdoor crop that becomes a fulfilling life work that supports us abundantly and helps feed the world around us. Now, last month in March, we delved into the power of thought, of words, of intention, and also of self-responsibility. If you missed that one, the 4th week of March, please go back and read the written materials on that. We'll tell you how to get to all that at the end of tonight's class, because that is really a fundamental building block for a lot of what we do here. But in April, this is really a month of quickening growth, of increasing light, of rising energy in a lot of parts of the countries where, everything just starts getting green and growing really fast. And I mean, in Minneapolis, where I used to live, it's when, maybe more of the snow melts. It's a start. But if nothing else, the light is different. And this month here, since we're all about the personal and spiritual work, we'll give attention to the more spontaneous, emotional, and intuitive sides of our being, the kind of quickening sides, the things that just happen very spontaneously. And in this week, we're going to give attention to that spring energy of quickening by rekindling if necessary, or just cultivating, if it's already there, our passion for life. Because our passionate zest for life is what gives us the motivation to make our dreams come true into reality. It has just remarkable healing powers. It can dispel deadening depression. And what's more, it's a big connection to our inner guidance and intuition as well, as I'll explain in a little more depth later. Yet, when our lifestyle has us doing way too many things we really don't love, our passion can fizzle and it can just seem, hopelessly out of reach. Now, we all have the occasional chores of life that don't make us jump for joy. But passion makes a difference between not minding these chores versus pushing ourselves through painful drudgery. I'm passionate about doing this, working with groups, teaching, that kind of thing. And, while I don't love composing and sending out the emails for all this stuff that I do, or keeping my mailing list updated, I have the energy for these things because they're part of doing what I love. If I were to take an administrative job that consisted of only this, I would have to force myself to go to work every day, and I'd be pretty depressed in no time. And when we believe that we won't really have any options other than a lot of joyless activity, we wind up feeling kind of numb and depressed. And when we start to feel, when we get stuck in that joyless place, that's often when we turn to all different kinds of addictions, whether they're kind of harmless ones or the more dangerous ones that we all kind of know the names of, to cope with the lack of natural joy in our lives. We try and fill ourselves up with something that will never fill us. And we'll talk a little bit more about what exactly is an addiction and another lesson here. But just for tonight, when we get too far away from living our passion, that's when illness or, crises of one sort or another have a way of intervening and really forcing us to change. I can't tell you how many people who've dealt with serious health crises say that their illness actually gave them permission to make positive changes in priorities and life direction that they wouldn't have considered otherwise. I myself, having just, gotten through kind of a 1.5 year bout with cancer and then the resulting treatment for cancer, and it just left me in bed for months on end, I discovered that the world does not end if I don't answer my emails. Like, who knew? That was just such a big should on my shoulders. I could not imagine it. I had, for the first time, probably in my adult life, I let go of feeling like I had to be responsible for anything. I was telling my husband, Bill, who's in the other room doing tech work for tonight, do you remember that period where I had to even tell you what to put in my tea because I could not get up and go to the kitchen and get it for myself? Oh yeah, I kind of blocked that out. But really, I just became like this little helpless baby. It did give me an incredible freeing to just start listening to what do I really want to do now, and to rethink my whole life differently. I sometimes ask people in my workshops what they would do if they were suddenly diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. And a lot of times people will just come up with this whole plan of just major life changes without even needing to think about it. Maybe they just leave an empty relationship or a spirit-deadening job, or take time for projects or self-care that they have backburnered, spending more time with their family or loved ones. All kinds of things that they've obviously had in mind, but that seemed impossible amid, the obligations and the safer choices of life. Things that, sometimes we don't wind up doing until we get sick or, something happens. And I think when illness strikes, we often start with the question, how can I get well? Now, if we redefine illness as an opportunity to change, I think a more useful line of questioning might be, what do I want to get well for? And what might be the blessing in this situation for me to just relax into right now? We don't have to get sick or reach a crisis point to come back to passion. And, even though it might mean making some difficult decisions involving major life changes, it can be the best healthcare we ever give ourselves. And, just as a lack of passion can, trigger an illness, the presence of it can just be an amazing, amazing healer. Healing speeds up when we find our passion and purpose for living. And when we begin to embrace just the joy and the sweetness in each moment. I knew a man many years ago who just had this whole series of strokes and heart attacks and really was at death's door. And everyone believed he was going to die very soon. He was in the hospital for what everyone thought was the last time people were going to say goodbye to him. He had this experience of God talking to him, telling him that he still had work to do. And God told him exactly what his work was. And he got up out of bed and started doing it. He went on to recover, and following the guidance he received, he started this whole nonprofit organization that got grant funding, everything, that found employment for hundreds of people who society kind of thrown away. You'd find people under the bridges and the people that were considered unemployable, and just help them find new lives. And he lived many more years after that. He had some health struggles, but he was much healthier than he ever looked when he was just on his walker, after his strokes. He had the spring in his gait, and really his passion and purpose breathed a whole new life and health and happiness into his body. So when our inner spark feels kind of low, well, what do we do? Where do we start that process back to passion? First, maybe simply by listening to our wants and desires. Think about, for example, scheduling a block of time, even just a little bit of time, to do exactly what you want. In fact, this is going to be one of our exercises this week. I'll talk more about that. Now, for those of us who have a really long-standing habit of doing what we should and don't have a lot of experience of doing what we want, we might feel that our whole day is just taken up with, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. We may fear that if we really indulged in what we just want to do right now, we just curl up on the couch with a book and never get up, or we'd start puttering in our gardens and never stop, or we just eat ice cream until we explode. And in fact, when we first give in to what we most want to do in the moment, we might, indeed spend a lot of time on the couch or working in the garden or going maybe for long walks or whatever else feels like some heavenly indulgence that we don't allow ourselves to experience much. Eventually, though, guilt-free indulging in that way leads us in a new direction. Those walks might bring some creative inspiration that solves an important problem, or gardening might lead to the start of a new landscaping business, or sitting on the couch might leave us rested enough to start, the healthy diet and exercise program we've been intending to do someday. I even saw a dedicated junk food junkie develop a craving for salad in a workshop with me, where she was encouraged to just listen and follow all her appetites for the 5 days of this workshop. Just try it, just see what happens. And after only 3 days of giving up the struggle with her, out of control appetites that she's just using discipline to just keep in mind, to her own amazement, she found herself really craving a salad for the first time in her conscious memory. And now if you're thinking, well, I was too depressed to get off the couch all last weekend. And I did get into all my junk food appetites, but I don't feel a bit inspired. I just feel more lethargic. That's because avoiding doing what we should is not at all the same as intentionally pursuing what we love. Doing the opposite of what we should, the whole while berating ourselves for the guilty indulgence, doesn't give a lot of a lot of pleasure, and it doesn't have much renewing benefit. We're still feeling the pressure of it, even when we're not giving into it. It really only affirms our losing battle with our own self-discipline and self-control, and it just leaves us feeling out of control. Now, creating guilt-free room in your life to carefully listen to what it is you want in the moment and acting on your wants in a way that's intentional and healthy can make this exercise into having kind of a creative adventure rather than just surrendering to depressive inertia and addictions. Because the more we're able to discern the little inclinations that want to make us do one thing more than another, and the more we follow these, the less likely they are to be out of control or just overcompensations for past restriction. As in, I haven't had a quiet moment to myself in weeks, so now all I want to do is stare at the TV for 10 hours. Or I haven't let myself eat one fun thing in a whole month, so now all I want to do is binge junk food for a whole weekend. There's also a way that these little urgings, these little inclinations begin to connect us with our inner guidance. That quiet voice that shows us the path of our true purpose and highest good. Just like, the woman I mentioned, when she really did just give in and not just struggle for that self-control, her inclinations were about, I want more vegetables. She wanted that. So then she could follow that from a place of joy rather than, I got to eat the vegetables. And suddenly options start appearing that show us alternatives to all kinds of circumstances that once seemed hopelessly limited. The inner struggle with self-discipline diminishes as what we want and what's good for us start to become more and more and more the same thing. And we find the drive to do all manner of positive, productive things that self-discipline alone would never accomplish. We have that drive, we have the energy. So, and please note, this isn't meant as encouragement for all-out binging in your favorite addictions. Because addictions, whether they're in the form of substances or activities, are always about becoming numb. The first few minutes of engaging in an addiction may be really pleasurable, but then the habit part of it kicks in and we go on autopilot. So by the time, we get to the bottom of the cookie bag, or that last beer, or the 10th hour of TV, we're not registering pleasure anymore. We've just zoned out. And discerning and following our desires is all about becoming more conscious rather than less conscious. It's about savoring each moment and moving on when the pleasure of the moment wanes. So the exercises for this week are multiple choice. They're all variations on the theme of taking time to do what you really want. Now, I'm going to talk about the first two exercises. And I do invite you to pick one of those. Then there's two more that I'm just going to leave for you all to read in the printed materials. And I'll tell you how to get to those at the end, because I think it'll just get a little too lengthy for us here. But they're important. But the first two, I think, are ones that everybody could very easily pick one of and get a lot out of these. Now, in the first exercise, you're to identify something important to you that you just haven't made time for, and find some way to give it time and attention first thing upon awakening every morning for a week. Just a week. You don't have to say, I'm going to do this forever. That can feel like you're putting Mount Everest in front of you. A week, any of us can do that. And you can stick with it. If it's a little snowball that's really built momentum, by all means, keep doing it. So this means changing your usual wake-up routine in whatever way you need to, so that you really can do this before anything else, save your few minutes to go pee and maybe get your cup of tea or coffee or whatever. And it could mean sitting down at your computer and working on the marketing plan for your home-based business. It could mean, working on the book you've always wanted to write. It might mean taking time to prepare healthy food to eat later so that you're not tempted by fast food when you're too tired and hungry to bother. It might mean devoting time to prayer or meditation or exercise before the activities of the day distract you. Now, the key to this is that this isn't going to be punishing. This isn't going to be about, I'm going to do this even when it kills me, because you don't need to spend a lot of time. Half an hour or even 5 minutes, if you do it every day religiously first thing, can have a really powerful effect. Because trust me, if you just tell yourself 5 minutes, before you know it, you're just going to want to do more than 5 minutes. So that's all that you have to impose upon yourself as the minimal structure, and just see where it takes you. Now, the second exercise involves setting aside a day, or at least half a day, 6 hours minimum, where you have absolutely nothing scheduled. You don't need to respond to texts. You don't need to answer your phone. You don't need to answer your email. You don't need to do anything. This is just time you've set aside out of your schedule just for yourself. And without making any plan, this is about letting go of all plans. So you're not going to think about it ahead of time, like, what would I most love to do if I had 6 hours? No, none of that. As you begin the day, you're going to ask yourself, what is it that I most want to do right now? And do nothing at all until you feel some inclination toward a particular activity. You might almost have to, free your mind and see what pops in. It might be, you think, well, I could read my book, I could meditate, I could listen to, but you might get something pops in that says, I just want to go down to the local coffee shop and, sit with a cup of really great coffee and maybe even a pastry. I don't let myself have, just see what just pops in as just this is what I want to do. And, so the idea is to do nothing until you feel an inclination toward a particular activity or non-activity. It might, maybe you think, I just want to stare at the wall. Stare at the wall until you just get called to do something else. And then continue the activity for as long as it feels satisfying until you feel drawn to doing something else. And spend the whole day identifying in the moment, not making a plan, identifying and following your impulses and inclinations without judging any activity as better or worse than any other. And really, really stay in the moment. Just release all temptations to create an agenda or a plan like, oh, this is so fun. What am I going to do next? No. Just be like, oh, this is so fun. Oh, I'm going to really enjoy it. Savor the sweetness of life and see what, you want to do next. The exercise is more about really listening than doing. And doing this is actually going to help to awaken and strengthen your ability to hear inner guidance. Because that's how inner guidance comes. It comes as this little whisper, like, do this, do this. It doesn't necessarily scream at us. Sometimes they do, but If we haven't been listening to inner guidance for a long time, first is just to it's going to be, you're going to have to really listen. Now, the idea of these exercises this week is being multiple choice. And like I said, there's 2 more in the printed materials that I want you to read on your own. It's to let yourself be drawn to whichever one feels right for you. And the instructions around these exercises are to pick one as your exercise for the week and to do it really religiously, never missing. And you can do more than one, but be mindful to do only what you feel a spark around. And it's better to fully commit to one exercise than to do more than one halfway. Now, with these first 2 that I've just described, here's my suggestion. If you if you're the kind of person who has your every waking moment planned and scheduled and can't imagine where you would ever find an unstructured block of time, then the unstructured block of time is the exercise you most need. That's the one you need. You don't need to do the first one. You need to do that open block of time. That is the one you need. It is out of your comfort zone, and that's kind of the point. Now, if you're prone to inertia and procrastination, then the one you most need is the first exercise, where you give attention to something first thing in the morning. Just speaking for myself, I've experienced both of those 2 things, dealing with, my experience of illness over the last, year and a half, kind of coming out of it now, where first I just was like, I can't do anything. And I really did have to just let go of everything. It wasn't really doing what I wanted to do because I waited until illness came and said, Lynn, you need to do this. You need to not do anything. But I realized, the world won't end if I don't answer my email. And I also realized, wow, there are people who love me so much. They are just willing to take care of me. I had a lot of people praying for me. I have never felt that before. I'm usually the one who starts, prayer groups for other people. If you ever get stopped by a crisis or illness, really let yourself be taken care of and see how it pushes you out of your comfort zone. So I had that experience. And then when I stopped feeling awful all the time, I just got this feeling like, I probably should get out of bed now. And it felt like a should, but it also felt like, it's like I almost didn't know. Now, when do I get out of bed? I'm not sure. This has become such a habit. It's just kind of easier to do the same thing again today. So I gave myself, I had no muscle tone from all that, being sick. I was really out of shape. I gave myself the assignment of very first thing in the morning, getting on my little super easy exerciser. It's called a QB. All you do is you sit and, your feet go round and round and round. And I said, Lynn, if you just do this for a little bit of time every day, first thing, no pressure, just however little you can do it. And, danged if it didn't make me just want to do more and more and more and more. Until now, I'm just finding myself working out, kind of pushing it hard for, at least an hour or more a day. And I'm doing weights and I'm doing all kinds of exercises. And my body feels better than it felt before I got sick. So, see what you need now. What's going to be out of your comfort zone as you choose one of those 2, be it doing a little something first thing in the morning. I've written books that way. When I had a lot of inertia, I know there's a book in me. I just can't get started. It feels too overwhelming. Sitting down for just even a little bit of time every morning just got me on a roll. See how it doesn't start energy moving. And giving everything up when you don't think you can, that's going to open some really interesting doors as well. Now, the additional 2 exercises are for any of you who are seriously struggling with inertia. Maybe you just feel kind of stuck in your life and need some extra help with motivation. And these are the 2, the ones that you'll find in the printed materials. I think of them as the intensive care exercises for when you just really need a serious jump start. And read through them, because one of them really might call you. Even if you don't think of yourself as stuck. If you get really called to one, consider doing it. If there are things in your life you wish you were doing or working toward, but you just lack self-motivation, you wish you had more discipline, it's important to understand that discipline doesn't take us very hard without passion behind it. And we'll talk some about will as well, because that's there too. But will, when it becomes self-discipline, it doesn't go far without that passion. And there is a process that leads to a lack of passion. It begins when we live for the future and we put our happiness off until later. We tell ourselves, well, I'll be happy when I get to my goal. When I get there, then I'll be happy. I can put happiness off until. And then what happens is that we wind up settling for this pretty unsatisfying present. We're working like a slave and, going, and we're not feeling very happy in life, but we say, well, I'll be happy then. And that's when we wind up starting to cope with the emptiness that's left through addictive behaviors, through just repressing all of our feelings. And the more we numb ourselves, the less we're able to hear all the intuitive guidance that leads us to our path of greatest fulfillment. Sometimes some of this working on our personality might not seem like law of attraction 101. Like, I want to just visualize what I want. I want what I want. I want it now. I have a kitten like that. He wants what he wants and he wants it now. And sometimes a lot of law of attraction teachings are even presented that way. Just visualize this and you will get like your millions and millions and blah, blah, blah. And yet, I can't tell you how many people I've heard. Well, one woman actually wrote to me and said, I did my vision board and I've gotten all the little things. I have all these really cool synchronicities. Now, how do I get the big stuff? Well, doing this work at the personal level really is like cultivating the soil that is just the foundation for really calling in the big quality of life shifts that we want in our lives. And we're going to be moving more and more into the spiritual work of manifesting, using our intention and our spiritual power and the synergy of all of us together. We're going to be using that to call in our highest good. And this work prepares the ground for us. So if it just seems like, I didn't sign up for that, I signed up for miracles. Where's my miracle? This is the foundation. If you skip this part, you're really skipping the miracle grow. You're just planting your seeds in arid, dry soil. I have some miracle growing. So as I was saying, the more we just numb ourselves out, whether it's through addictions or, just suppressing emotions, we don't hear those little inklings that, push us in one direction or another that's going to lead us into miraculous paths and and opportunities in our path of greatest fulfillment. And the more we deny our desires and passions because we think they don't fit with our, future-based goals, the more unhealthy and out of balance our desires become. And then the more we need to control them. So we set up a lifestyle where we're routinely doing something other than what we want, where we're pressing our desires, we're coping with the results of stress and unhappiness. The result is, sometimes depression or inertia or illness or some kind of breakdown. So inertia, it's always there for a reason. Sometimes it's because our effort has just gotten off track in some way, and it's no longer in alignment with our highest good. Sometimes inertia is just telling us we need a break in activity to dream and regroup and become inspired. I found this a lot in my writing. If I ever feel a block, it's often a sign to me like just say a little prayer and get up, walk away, do something else, come back, and then boom, often all kinds of new things will come. Sometimes we need those breaks in either a short-term way or sometimes a long-term way to just get re-inspired toward our true highest good, not just where we think we're supposed to go. And sometimes inertia is there to protect us from going forward when some less conscious part of us believes that our desired goal is not safe or somehow not in our best interest. An example, in the early 80s, I was working pretty extensively with people dealing with physical illnesses. I ran a center for attitudinal healing. So we offered a lot of alternative services to people who were really pretty sick. And I remember meeting a therapist who specialized in teaching cancer patients how to visualize their disease away. Those techniques were just very, cutting edge back then. And the therapist shared with me just her great frustration that so few of her clients were motivated to continue their healing programs. She just couldn't understand why they wouldn't do a few simple exercises to save their lives. And yet, what she was perceiving to be a foolish lack of discipline on their parts might well have been some unconscious instinct to let go of their disease too quickly. As we addressed last week, the gains that come from an illness or other life crises it can be profound and so vitally important to our well-being that we unconsciously choose them even over healing the disease. And we need to learn how to, become more conscious of what the gains are and learn how to step out of our comfort zone and invite those gains into our lives without needing a crisis to force us there. Like how to take time off, willingly, or things like that. So sometimes inertia comes up not as a weakness or a lack of discipline, because some instinctive part of us still needs the hidden gains of staying where we are. Just as giving too much energy to what we feel we should do and not enough to what we want to do is a sure path to inertia. Following our heart's desire, really, is the only path back to passion. Listening to, what just makes your heart just jump up and down in childlike glee. Everything else is just going to lead back to that stuck inert place. And, a lot of people believe this is impossible and can identify all the things they should do, things they really have to do, simply can't abandon to do, Yet in the end, the part of us that just doesn't want to often has a way of winning out in spite of our best efforts. Because we're going to be moving more into really listening to our heart's desire, it really is important to start listening, to know what our heart's desire is. So that's how we're going to complete with tonight. This is where we do some of the spiritual work. We have to have some sense of what our heart's desire is. So this is where we go in and we listen to our heart. And at the end of this, I'll tell you how to access the recording of this. And we'll give you I don't usually go back more than, out of the month we're in to help you review. But I think last week's lesson was so important that we will give you the last week in March as well. And we'll, and as always, I do this as my volunteer service nowadays, this Wednesday class. And I do it on behalf of the nonprofit centers that host it. So whatever center sent you here, go to their website and make a generous donation. And I always say, make the donation in some way match what you want to get out of it, So let it match in some way the magnitude of your heart's desire that you are calling in. I found that in my own personal giving to be quite magnetic. It's a powerful prosperity technique to do it that way. So anyway, close your eyes now. Take a few deep breaths. And let your body just relax fully as you focus on your breath. Breathe in relaxation. Breathe out tension, tiredness, discomfort in your body. And as you just relax and your awareness just naturally turns inward, just give attention to your heart. And just find there just this beautiful center of light. Any of you who've done energy work know about the heart center, where our physical heart is. Actually is a big center of energy. And find there at your heart just the most beautiful spark, just this magical fire that never ever burns out. It's always there, supplying you with endless energy and passion for life and joy and wonder and innocence and fresh perspective and creativity. It's like that inner spontaneous part of you that just desires from life and really embraces the sweetness of life. It just loves life. And no matter how far away you may at times feel from this inner light, know that it's always there. Always has been, always will be. And so just honor it now with your attention. Just give it all of your attention and see it just flash even brighter with joy at being acknowledged and recognized and fed. And as you look into this light, just give attention now to your deepest heart's desire. Just really look inside and find what it is that you want passionately. And some of us have had so many experiences in life of not getting what we want, that we've trained ourselves not to want. So you may need to dig a little deeper, kind of dig deep to find that spark within you. that still has innocence and wonder and still desires from life. And really do know the spark to be your creative power, your capacity for joy. It's even your life force, a big part of your natural healing force. And just let the spark grow within you. You know, just imagine yourself looking into this beautiful, beautiful flame and ask yourself, what does your highest good most want for you? What is it that you most want from life right now? Letting go of, you know, all the things you think you want, the things, you know, you believe you should want because they seem sensible, all the things other people tell you you should want, you know, even the things you used to want, and just let go of preconceptions. Ask the wisest part of yourself for an answer. Find your fire, your passion. See what it is you most want from life. And if something specific and concrete comes to mind, maybe it's a new job, a home, a relationship, just picture that as vividly as you can, and then go beyond the picture to discover what it is you want to feel or experience as a result of achieving this specific goal. You know, to see what's behind the specific. And if you don't have any external goal in mind, if you're not in touch with anything specific, you know, if this is the case, just go right to the feeling of what you want and ask yourself, how do I want to feel in life? What would it be like to experience more joy in my life? To feel more love and more empowerment and more creativity, more health, more security, more safety, more freedom, and more of whatever I just don't seem to get quite enough of, or I've never even maybe thought to ask for because it seems so out of reach. What would it be like to wake up in the morning excited about the day to come, passionate about the day to come, and enjoy all the activities of daily life? Maybe see if you can remember a day like that. If you can't, just make one up, because imagination can take us all the places we've never been before in making reality. But see if you can remember a day like that, maybe even when you were a kid. You were just so excited to wake up. Maybe it was Christmas morning. Maybe it was the day, you know, your parents took you to the beach, you know, or you were so excited and everything was just so wonderful. And just imagine what that would feel like. And what would it feel like to be loved and to love as you've always wanted to be? Maybe in a way you never have before or even thought possible. What would it be like to go to sleep at night feeling grateful and blessed and at peace, looking forward to the next day? And just create within yourself now the inner experience of having a life filled with joy and reward and purpose. And let this become so vivid, you feel it. You're not just thinking it. It's not something far away and abstract. Your whole body is just vibrating with it. That experience of fulfillment. And know that this feeling of joy really is always within you. We don't even need an external event to call it forth. All we have to do is call on it like we are right now. And just let this inner state of joy just grow and wash through you. And this feeling of joy, not just the thought of it, is actually creating powerful body memories of fulfillment in your body, which in turn creates a vibration of joy that we emit to the world around you. That, is already starting to attract the people and circumstances that are best going to keep the fires of joy alive. So just, bringing all the good feelings back with you. Take a deep breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale deeply. Just come on back feeling alert and passionate, like ready to embrace life. And so every one of these sessions, as many of you already know, has on my website a lot of other materials that go with it. There's some pretty extensive written materials. We also post recording of the live class. And the classes that have more extensive meditations, you'll also find the meditation itself, just recorded in a sound studio with a nice music bed. That's much nicer to listen to than the live class recording. So it's important to go on and explore all that to get the most out of these classes. So I know we've gone over a little bit tonight, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Remember, an hour before this class, I do an open healing service for anyone who wants to join. Everyone gets a little bit of personal healing attention. At 7:30, or I'm sorry, a half an hour early, depending on your time zone, Eastern time, that would be 7:30. If you want to log in early, I do little mini intuitive readings for anyone who wants one. So if you ever want to tune in for the pre-class events, come an hour early. And until next week, it's always such an honor and a blessing to be with you all. Until next week, I love and I bless you. Namaste.